What if I told you that the ancient Arabic word for angel has absolutely nothing to do with supernatural beings?
Right, like the whole beings made of light playing harps in the clouds kind of thing.
Exactly. What if, instead of these divine creatures whose only job is to execute magical commands, the word is actually, well, what if it's a highly sophisticated linguistic blueprint for the laws of physics?
It is a massive paradigm shift. I mean, it really is. Because
Yeah.
when you approach these ancient texts without, the centuries of traditional theological assumptions piled on top of them.
Yeah, the cultural baggage.
Exactly. When you strip that away, the underlying structural logic you uncover is just startlingly precise. It reads way less like mythology and much more like systems architecture.
Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring a truly fascinating source document titled The Cosmic Operating System, a rationalist audit of Malaikah.
It's a great title.
It really sets the tone. Because our goal today is to completely reframe the concept of angels, which, for the listener, is how the Arabic word Malaikah is traditionally translated.
Right.
But we are looking at this through the strict, unflinching lens of a rationalist structural analysis of the Quranic text. The author of this audit argues that if you erase everything you know about historical chronologies or sectarian commentary, the text actually reads like a literal manual for a universal operating system.
And I think what's so compelling is that the framework we're dealing with here, it doesn't rely on outside interpretation or mystical conjecture at all.
Right. It's very grounded.
Super grounded. The audit focuses strictly on the alphanumeric primes and the functional mechanics of the text itself. It takes the exact root letters of these words and maps them directly to the laws of nature.
What the text refers to as the Sunan Allah, right?
Yes, exactly. The fixed operational laws of the universe.
And for everyone listening, I can honestly say that reviewing these sources has completely rewired the way I view the physical world. I mean, by the end of this deep dive, you are going to look at gravity, electromagnetism, and even your own psychological responses in an entirely different light.
It changes everything.
It really does.
Yeah.
So let's start at the foundation. Before we can understand what these cosmic forces actually do in the physical universe, we have to understand how they are built linguistically, right?
Right.
We have to look at the root code of the word itself.
That is definitely the logical starting point. So to uncover the engineering of the term Malaikah, the audit isolates its primary structural components down to the base root letters in Arabic.
The jar.
Mim, Lam, and Kaf. So MLK.
MLK, got it.
Right. And in classical Semitic linguistics, roots aren't just like arbitrary sounds. They function as phonetic and semantic primes. They represent actual physical actions or states of being.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when you say phonetic prime, you mean like the sound of the letter itself inherently carries a specific conceptual weight.
Precisely. Ancient languages were often deeply phenomenological, so let's look at how the audit breaks down that first letter, the mim.
Okay.
The analysis defines mim as the manifestation matrix. Historically and linguistically, this phonetic prime governs the transition of data, or potential energy, into a tangible, observable state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it represents the materialization of a directive. It's the exact moment something goes from being just an abstract potential to a localized reality.
I see. So, okay, if we were using like a software analogy here, MIM wouldn't just be the code sitting on a hard drive.
Right.
It would be the exact moment the processor executes that code, and it actually manifests as an image on your screen.
That is an excellent way to visualize it. Yes, It's the localization of energy. So then we move to the second prime, which is Lam. The audit identifies Lam as the transmission vector. It represents sequential linkage and movement. Think of it as the directional flow of information.
Gotcha.
So if MIM is the manifestation, Lam is the transmission cable, right?
Okay.
It's the pathway connecting an origin point to a destination.
That tracks. Okay, so we have manifestation and we have a pathway. What about the third letter?
The third prime is Kaf, and this functions as the potential container.
Container. Okay.
Yeah, linguistically, it denotes a structural form, a functional shell, or the capacity to enclose, lock down, and hold a specific operational payload.
So if we compile these atomic primes, mem, lam, kaf, what is the synthesized meaning? Because I'm noticing that absolutely none of this points to a conscious feeling entity.
It doesn't at all.
Right.
When you combine them, the root meaning that emerges is defined by the audit as a manifested transmission of containment.
Okay, that sounds very technical.
It is. It basically means it's an autonomous, localized packet of data sent out to execute a defined function within the hardware of reality. Yeah. And when these letters coalesce in the language, they form words like mulk or malik, which traditionally translate to governance, kingship, or control.
Right, like a king.
Exactly. But systemically, it means the ability to contain and direct the flow of a physical environment.
Okay, pulling this all together, that means a malak, or the plural, malaika, should really be defined as an autonomous operational protocol.
Exactly.
It's a systemic subroutine. These are the fundamental laws, like the hard-coded instructions deployed to maintain and run the universe's infrastructure. They are the executables of reality.
Yes. And doing this entirely removes that anthropomorphic overlay we're so used to.
Right.
Gravity, for instance, is a malak under this definition.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't possess free will. It doesn't decide if it likes you before it pulls you toward the earth, right?
Thankfully.
Right. It is a static, bounded subroutine that simply executes its coded function without any emotional variation.
I want to stick with this software architecture analogy because viewing them as APIs or like background computer processes makes the rest of this audit make so much sense.
It really does.
But I am curious how this actually plays out in the text. Like, if these are systemic subroutines, how does the Quranic text describe them operating in the physical universe?
Well, this is where we scale up from just the word itself to the cosmos.
Okay.
If we look at Surah Fatir, chapter 35, verse 1, the text describes the structural capacity of these forces using very specific functional terms. It refers to the Malaikah as Rusulan.
Now wait, I know the traditional translation of Ruslan is usually messengers, which obviously leans super heavily into the idea of beings delivering literal scrolls or words to prophets, right?
Exactly.
So how does a systems audit translate it?
In an information systems context, a messenger is simply a transmitter or a carrier of data.
Oh, like a messenger particle in physics.
Precisely. A photon is a messenger of light. A graviton is a messenger of gravity. They carry data. And the text states that these transmitters possess what is called ajna.
Hold on, let me just pause you right there.
Sure.
Because I have to push back a bit. I know enough about the traditional translations to know that ajniya is almost universally translated as wings.
It is, yeah.
I mean, the historical art, the commentary, humanity has painted these entities with literal, feathery, bird-like wings for millennia. If this text is a literal systems manual, how on earth does a bird wing fit into the physics of the universe?
It doesn't, and that is exactly the point the author makes. What's fascinating here is the massive difference between a surface-level reading by an ancient audience versus actually understanding the linguistic blueprint.
Okay, so what does it mean?
The document breaks down the internal usage of the singular word jano. Systemically, it doesn't mean a feathered appendage at all. The root actually relates to a side, an inclination, or a lateral push.
Wait, really? So an ajniya is like a directional force, like a vector and influence.
Precisely. Think about it when ancient human beings observed or read a text describing cosmic entities moving through the heavens possessing inclinations or sides that provide movement and force.
The closest biological parallel their minds could grasp was a bird's wing.
Exactly. It was the only way they could conceptualize it. But the text itself is much more mathematically rigorous because in that very same verse, it says these vectors of influence come in pairs, groups of 3, and groups of 4.
Let me guess. The audit connects those specific numbers to multidimensional constraints in physics.
It does. A natural force operates under highly specific constraints. Modern physics recognizes 4 fundamental forces, right? Gravity, electromagnetism, the weak nuclear force, and the strong nuclear force.
Right.
We have spatial dimensions, thermodynamic laws. The numbering of these vectors, 2, 3, 4, mirrors the mathematical and dimensional realities of how forces push, pull, and stabilize the physical universe.
That is wild.
They aren't feathers on a glowing being, you know. They are the parameters of physics.
That is just a wild recontextualization. Okay, so if these vectors govern massive cosmological environments like stars, gravity, nuclear forces, what happens when we scale the system down?
That's the next step.
Because the sources you provided zoom in incredibly fast from the macro universe down into human biology and psychology. Like, do these same executables operate inside us?
They absolutely do. And this is where the system gets highly localized. In Surah Al-Infitar and Surah Qaf, the text maps these forces directly to the automated recording of human cognitive choices and behavioral outputs.
Okay, how so?
The audit highlights a series of specific utility terms. First, there are the Efian.
I know that term is usually translated broadly as guards or protectors, right? But in the context of an operating system, what does an algorithmic protector actually do?
Think of it as a maintenance algorithm or a parity check. It preserves the integrity of the data, and the text then pairs this with the katiban.
Okay, Katub usually means writer, right? So these would be the data loggers?
Correct. The system doesn't just maintain the environment, it constantly logs interactions.
Wow, okay.
And the text refines this even further by mentioning a rakib and an atid.
What are those?
A rakib is a real-time observer or monitor constantly tracking inputs. An atid is a configured system resource, meaning it is always in a ready, compiled state, prepared to execute instantly.
Okay, let me make sure I'm following. So we have maintenance algorithms, data loggers, real-time monitors, and ready state resources.
Yes.
How do they actually coordinate? Does the text give us like a spatial map of how this logging works?
It does, actually. It says these forces operate on two specific coordinates relative to the human. Al-Yamin, which is the constructive or right side vector,
Okay.
and Al-Shimal, the restrictive or left side vector.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Because when I read this section of the audit, it sounded almost exactly like biological memory encoding or the physics of entropy and neuroplasticity.
Oh, absolutely.
It's basically suggesting that human consciousness has this continuous, unbreakable background backup running at all times.
Yes.
Like every single choice you make, every input you provide modifies the structural record of your own consciousness.
It is the absolute preservation of cause and effect. Nothing is lost. Every action has an equal and opposite systemic reaction that is logged into your psychological and biological framework.
That's intense.
It is. And the text takes this even further into the realm of human psychology in Surah Fussilat, verse 30. It describes an incredibly specific interaction that occurs when a human achieves what is called istiqama.
Istiqama, meaning uprightness or alignment.
Exactly. Absolute structural alignment with the natural laws of reality.
Okay.
The text states that when a human mind achieves this perfect alignment, the Malaikah descend upon them, delivering a very specific operational command.
Which is,
Do not fear and do not grieve.
oh, wow. Using our software analogy, that is a neurological stabilization protocol.
Exactly.
It's an automated software patch. Like when you align your behavior with reality, when you stop fighting the system, the operating system automatically optimizes your processing.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So the descent isn't a physical angel dropping from the clouds to pat you on the back. It's the natural systemic transition of the brain out of a primitive threat response mode and into an optimized high-performance state of clarity. The fear bug is neutralized.
That is exactly the mechanism the author is highlighting. It's brilliant.
It really is.
But to fully grasp why human beings have been granted this level of administrative access to the system, we have to look at the prototype.
The prototype.
Yes, we have to look at the origin story, the ultimate systemic narrative event where these forces first interface with humanity.
Ah, the story of Adam in Surah al-Baqarah.
Exactly.
Right, the creation story. But again, for the listener, we have to erase the imagery of a magical, theatrical courtroom in the sky. How does this rationalist audit frame the Adam narrative?
It frames it as the introduction of a new operational variable into an already perfectly balanced system. God announces the establishment of a Khalifa on Earth.
A Khalifa translates roughly to an analytical manager or like a successive administrator, right?
Right. But the forces, the Malaikah, object to this installation.
And I found their objection to be one of the most fascinating parts of this entire text. Because it's not framed as a rebellion.
Not at all.
It's a calculation.
Exactly. It is a cold mathematical projection, based entirely on their fixed programming of the natural laws of biology and resource scarcity. They calculate that placing a biological entity in a closed system like Earth will naturally result in competition for resources.
Which makes total sense.
Right. And this competition will inevitably lead to ecological corruption, what the text calls useed and bloodshed, yasfik ad-dama.
So they just ran the numbers.
Yes. The natural system calculated this instantly because, left to themselves, animals live purely by instinct and will consume their environment to survive.
Because the background subroutines only know what they're programmed to know.
Precisely.
They actually state in the text, we have no knowledge except what you have taught us. It's like we discussed earlier. Gravity cannot suddenly choose to be buoyant.
Right.
The strong nuclear force cannot invent a new way to bind atoms. They are static laws. So if humanity is just another biological animal, the system flags us as a destructive virus.
Exactly. And to prevent this analytical manager from destroying the planet, humanity receives a hardware upgrade.
Hardware upgrade.
Yes. The human prototype, Adam, is injected with a unique data protocol that no other biological entity possesses. Al-Asma Kullaha. The names.
The names. This feels like the crux of the entire audit.
It really is the turning point.
Because the names represent the cognitive faculty for symbolic thought, for language, for science, for abstraction. Like an animal sees a tree and its instincts calculate food or shelter.
Right, it's immediate survival.
But a human being, we have the names. We can analyze the tree, we name its chemical parts, we deduce the process of photosynthesis, we figure out how to turn the wood into paper, and we extract its compounds to manufacture medicine.
It's an entirely different level of processing.
We have the unique capacity to take the invisible laws of the universe and turn them into abstract data.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this capacity for abstract data processing completely redefines the most famous command in the entire narrative.
Which command?
God commands the forces to prostrate to Adam.
Right.
The Arabic word is sujud. Systemically, sujud does not mean nature bows down out of some magical or theatrical respect.
Because physics doesn't feel respect.
Exactly. Sujud denotes submission, utility, and functional yielding to a superior directive.
I really want the listener to grasp this because this is the core paradigm shift of the entire deep dive. The physical forces of nature, the Malaikah, are structurally engineered to yield to and be harnessed by any conscious agent that can process abstract language and science.
Yes.
Because we learned the names of aerodynamics and fluid dynamics, the physical law of air resistance literally yields to our airplanes.
Exactly.
Because we learned the names of electricity and quantum mechanics, electrons yield to our smartphones and computers.
You've captured the exact essence of it. The universe is a giant neutral piece of hardware. Human knowledge, the names, is the software that is allowed to run it.
That is just incredible.
When a human mind demonstrates the capacity to map out and understand these concepts, the system naturally, mechanically yields to the processor that holds the data.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because if this is true, the entire system is designed to be perfectly harmonized.
Right.
The forces yield. The math works. The hardware and software are compatible. But there is an anomaly in the narrative.
There is.
There's a bug in the code.
Yeah.
The text states that all the forces submitted except one.
Iblis.
Iblis. So who or what is Iblis in this framework?
According to the structural audit, Iblis isn't a fiery monster living in the center of the earth. Iblis represents a specific psychological law, the law of arrogance and ego. It is the artificial sense of superiority. It refused to yield to the new system parameters, and therefore it broke away from the system's harmony.
Which makes terrifying sense when you look at human history.
It really does.
I mean, when human beings use our scientific power, when we use our mastery of the names with arrogance instead of balance, we break from the natural order. We use physics and chemistry to build nuclear weapons. We use our understanding of biology and agriculture to ruthlessly exploit ecosystems for profit.
We override the balance.
Exactly. By allowing the Iblis bug arrogance to run unchecked in our own operating system, we end up causing the exact ecological corruption and bloodshed that the natural algorithms warned about in the very beginning.
And this raises an important question for anyone engaging with this material. If the universe is a perfectly balanced system of cause and effect preservation, why is arrogance the only virus that can crash it?
Why is it?
It is because arrogance fundamentally is the rejection of reality. It is a refusal to align with istiqomah, that structural uprightness we discussed earlier. When you reject the constraints of the system and artificially elevate your own ego above the natural laws, the system can no longer stabilize you.
The alignment is broken.
Exactly. The fear and grief protocols return. The hardware suffers.
That is profound. Let's just take a breath and recap this incredible paradigm shift. Through the lens of this rationalist audit, angels, the Malaikah, are not winged messengers hovering in some ethereal dimension.
No.
They're the fixed laws of physics, of biology, of psychology. They are the autonomous executables of a cosmic operating system. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this entire blueprint is that these forces are specifically designed to yield to your pursuit of knowledge.
And that is the ultimate takeaway for the listener.
Yeah.
When you learn, when you study, when you understand the mechanics of the universe is quite literally hardwired to yield to you. But, as the source text makes perfectly clear, With that immense administrative processing power comes the ultimate responsibility.
You have to stay aligned.
You must maintain alignment with the natural laws, and you must fiercely guard your consciousness against the ego virus.
Because if the physical universe is essentially a massive neutral piece of hardware that blindly executes the commands of whoever holds the names, whoever holds the knowledge and the science, then reality itself has no moral preference. It just runs our code.
It just runs the code.
Which leaves me with a thought I really want you, the listener, to mull over today as you go about your life.
It's a big one.
It is. Right now, humanity is developing advanced artificial intelligence and exploring quantum computing. We are generating new abstract names and unlocking the deepest variables of the universe at literal light speed.
Faster than ever before.
Exactly. We have more administrative access to the cosmic operating system than any generation in history. So the question is, are we using the names to prepare and write the most beautiful, harmonized software the universe has ever seen, or, blinded by arrogance, are we just coding an unpatchable virus? The hardware is waiting. It yields to us. It's time to decide what we actually want to do with the foundational code of reality.